Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to this very important talk and organizing by the Taiwan Institute for Governance Communication Research. My name is Trisha Lin. I'm the Associate Professor at the Department of Radio and Television, National Change University. As the committee chair, TIGCR committee chair for the International Research and Collaboration, I feel so delighted to, chair these sessions, and the session will be given by the very well-known and outstanding scholar, Professor Louisa. And Louisa currently is the editor-in-chief of a very important journal in our communication field, which is the Journal of Mass Communication and Journalism Quarterly, which impact factor is more than 1.7. And she also has outstanding academic performance. She published more than 60 journal articles, received lots of research awards. At the same time, she also published books or received a lot of awards. So there are so many to talk about her. And her recent book actually is about which is titled as The Audience and the Business of YouTube and Online Video, which is very related to the new media areas. And then if you have interest, you should just take a look and read it. And for today, she's going to talk about research methods, new media research methods in mobile and the internet. And without further ado, let's give Louisa the big claps and welcome her.
Thank you, Dr. Lin, for her very interesting introduction for myself. And of course, I have to thank the National Change University for inviting me, and especially the TIGCR to plan this event. So I'm very glad that there are many probably different from different university disciplines to come to this particular talk. When I was invited to come, and I was thinking about what would be a good topic to present, so I gave Dr. Xu Meiling. So she is the one that actually brought me here, because she asked me, when I come here, and she did a lot of work. So first of all, I have to thank her for doing all the logistics to come here, because I really bothered her a lot of things. So, and then one of the topics that she picked the topic. I give her a list, and she picked this topic. I'm not surprised, because this topic, I think, will be of use to many, many fields. As long as you find survey as a useful method for your field, then this probably is a topic that would be of your interest. So you may ask, well, I am a communication scholar. Why I care about this topic about research developments in mobile and online surveys? So I need to talk a little bit about my background. Before I became a professor in Bowling Green State University, I worked in the Gallup organization. So probably many of you have heard about this Gallup opinion poll. I work in that company, but I tell people I did not do opinion poll. I do market research. Market research is how to make money. Political opinion poll is just to make a name for the company. So that's how it works. So, but I learned a lot of techniques there in terms of survey techniques there. So actually that helped me in terms of doing my communication research, because survey is one of the most important methods used in communication research. So I found it very useful to learn about the method. I taught method class, but also more importantly is how I can improve the method so that I could get better data. That's a very basic question, and the motivation of doing this kind of research. So my topic this is a big topic. Actually, I can create several courses for this. So of course, within 1 hour, you could not get too much out of it. So I just concentrate on a little bit of what I feel the most important trend, and present two of my latest research about this topic, especially with communication background and interest. So you can take a look and see how communication people like me use the survey, latest survey method to test the different survey techniques. When you take online survey, usually our first idea of an online survey, you receive an email, right? And it asks you to fill out a survey. And especially in the past, when the web survey is not so popular in design, you can just probably fill out something in email. But another one, actually now when we talk about online survey are actually survey that is put on the web as a web page using the software, whatever software you're using, and then collected the data through any kind of internet device that can display web. pages. And the third type of actually web survey, online survey, actually what we mean is actually they are survey that was delivered to mobile device users only. Because mobile device is also now mobile internet is a very common way how people get internet service is through the mobile devices. So there are three types of mobile surveys. One type is actually basically same as a web survey, but it's just completed on the mobile device. Another is actually using the mobile survey app, which you would be asked to download either knowingly or unknowingly get the app, and then collect the data about maybe your usage or some other thing. Okay, this is another way of getting data from mobile devices. And the third type is actually using the advantages of mobile devices that you can have SMS or other messaging app like WhatsApp or Line or something to deliver the surveys. So these three are the most common type of mobile survey. Maybe there's some other new ways too, because right now the mobile devices are developed all the time in different format and configuration. So there will be other new ones. So there will be new ones later on, but at least these three are the most common ones. But for research purposes, there are a lot of limitations. You cannot just do all of them at the same time. Because, for example, if you are doing mobile survey apps, actually mobile survey app, even though theoretically it sounds very good, because if you download it on your participant's computer or, the device that they have, the mobile device, to collect automatically the data, which sounds very nice. But the problem is, why would people download the app? To let you collect all the data. That's a big problem. So as a survey researcher, we have to think about, well, who would be willing to do that? And what kind of bias would it introduce to your research study? So these are all these issues that we have to think about as a researcher. All right. So of course, before we start talk about what is the best method or how to compare survey methods, we have to understand what are some common problems in surveys. And I presume most of you here have done some sort of survey study or participated in a survey study before. If you haven't done any survey study before, please raise your hand. Not done any survey study. So presumably everybody has some experience about survey study, of course, different levels. So can you tell me what are some of the problems that you would have in a survey study? Anyone? Anyone want to? Missing data. Missing data. Yeah. People may not fill out what you want. Okay. So this is an issue, right? It affects the process. Missing data is an important problem. What else? Yes. Huh? Self-reporting. Why is self-reporting a problem? Because people change and lie, right? Consciously, unconsciously lie. Okay. So these are some common problems. Of course, there are a lot. So, but we can generally say there's two major problems. One major problem is the low participation rate. I don't know whether you pay attention to some of these survey research about, well, what's the response rate for typical surveys. Right now, most recent study that I found by Pew Internet and other research company find that in general, telephone survey response rate is less than 10% now, even by reputable survey company, not to mention those that are not. So this is at least in the US in this situation. And I don't know in Taiwan what's the general response rate for a telephone survey. But in general, it's low. Why? Because, well, people, first of all, they see a lot of telemarketing calls, right? They don't see this, just, you're not really doing a survey, you are trying to scam them or something. Second is that people don't have the patience to participate. They are too overwhelmed by this kind of requests and so on. And the third is that also there are really too many telephone fraud on the phone that people don't want to release information on the phone anymore. So this is a very important issue. And actually, when we talk about a little bit more, telephone survey versus web survey, it's a major issue. Like, for example, in Taiwan, there's a lot of election opinion poll. Right now, it's very important in selecting the presidential candidate, right? So, yeah, this is a very important issue, how to get accurate and valid data. The second problem is the quality of response, which include missing data, which include satisfying which people quickly completing the survey without thinking, actually just mark the answer without actually reflecting actually their own opinion. They just want to finish the survey. And incomplete responses, which include missing responses or entry error, just type the wrong thing. They want to say 37, but they type 73, for example. It's totally different. 37-year-old person versus 73-year-old, totally different. But this is what you recorded. This is the data. So this is an issue that we have to deal with when we try to design any kind of survey research design. But before that, let's look at what are the advantages of web surveys and why I focus on web surveys? Because actually I would say that the future of countries with internet access will be web survey. In the future, telephone survey would probably die in the future and by 20, 30 years because of the ease of and convenience of another advantages of web survey that is over telephone survey, which have been shown by research. So what are some of the advantages? First major advantage for survey researchers is eliminate the influence of interviewers. Because interviewer bias have been an important issue that have been found. When you use an interviewer to try to recruit respondents by telephone survey, the interviewer is very important. If the interviewer is good at soliciting people's cooperation, then probably the participation rate will be higher. But if you don't have that kind of very persuasive interviewers, then you don't get the participation. So it's so dependent on the interviewers in getting the participant in the first place. So there's a problem. And also interviewer has their own bias because of, like, for example, face-to-face interview. If you are a minority person, you try to interview a majority person, they may not cooperate. Those type of issues you have to deal with. So those type of bias, with web survey, theoretically, you will eliminate that problem because they just look at the web page and answer. And the web mode also results in better data quality. That has been studied by like Kaminska and Fusham. It's a national survey experiment to find actual web mode, the same survey delivered through web has much better data quality than the survey, telephone survey, because respondents, all options are read by the respondent. Unlike in a telephone survey that a lot of times the respondent cannot see what actually are the options, cannot remember. So that's why the quality is better. And no questions are being missed as easily as in face-to-face survey. And it's all very easy to skip questions on the paper to paper in print survey. Print survey have the problem that people easily miss the question. So the web survey is considered as superior to the traditional print survey and also better than the telephone survey data. And also, web survey has, that's another study that I work with my grad student, is the item completion rate is much higher than telephone survey. We do a comparison. The same questions with telephone survey, the item completion rate is much higher when you use a web survey, the equivalent situation. And also, web survey, we can reach large amount of people within a very short amount of time. And you can present survey in any multimedia content you want. You can have video, you can have visuals, and any kind of thing that you can imagine if you have the money to program the web survey in that way. So there's a lot of possibilities. While the other survey modes are very limited in terms of what you can present. And also faster speed, as you know, one click you can reach millions of people at the same time. Less time in response entry because basically people can just pick and choose a type and then very fast. It's easy to administer. Much higher flexibility and more design options because you can program it differently. You can also eliminate the response entry burden after the data collection because unlike the print survey, you have to enter everything by hand or scan or do the other checking. Everything on the data that you collected from the web survey is already automatically saved on the server. So just check it. So it's very easy compared to other research survey methods. Also, web survey respondents were also found to spend more time to complete open-ended questions, especially if your open-ended questions is much better to use web survey than any other survey method because it's much easier to type than to write on a piece of paper or tell you on the phone. So web surveys also are more suited for respondents to answer the high-burden survey question formats, such as major questions or a large amount of multiple responses or open-ended questions, or we ask them to do some extra work. Then web survey is also a very good method to do it. All right. Despite of all these good things about web surveys, there are problems in web survey. And mostly I attribute this to the Dillman research book on total survey methods, because he has written a very good book about survey method and talk about all these problems in web survey. One of the problems is the undercoverage of the older and less educated population and the population without internet access. So that's why I conditioned my earlier presentation about why the survey method, the major trend would go for internet web survey is only for countries with internet access. Those without, of course, don't talk about it. But for those countries that have web access easily, then this is a very good way to do it. But still, not 100% of the population have it. So those who don't have it, they don't have a chance to participate theoretically. So we have to tackle this problem. And the method that I'm talking about is able to overcome this issue. The second problem is difficult to conduct a random sample, especially if you are not talking about a list that you have, then you are not able to randomly sample them. So how can you be representative? That's the issue. And low response rate, as we talked about earlier. Measurement of non-response errors is another problem because people can choose not to answer certain questions. And whenever you have personal questions, such as income and age, are most likely to skip in web surveys. If you don't trust me, if you do some web survey, compare the response on these variables. Income and age are most likely to be skipped. And then the concern of anonymity and computer security is another issue because many people know that, well, they worry that when they enter a thing on the computer, because computer can record everything, theoretically everything about like where they were and everything can be recorded. So some people who are very cautious about privacy, they may worry that when they, even though you said that the survey is anonymous, you can trace them back from the computer. And also finally is the participant may use different devices to complete the self-administered web survey. And you don't know how the display would differ by what web browser they use, what device they use. So it will affect the display result and how they enter information as well. So these are the challenges to us. The fast-growing penetration of smartphone in many more developed countries like Taiwan, Hong Kong, US, their fast-growing penetration of smartphone and other devices make them as a common data entry device for the web surveys because it's the most common way that people have access to the internet instead of computers. But when web survey software was designed and configured, it was based on computers. People are using computers, but actually most people are not using computers to access internet on a daily basis. Unless we are doing on work, like we are more likely to use computers. But for most other common people outside, not academia people, they don't use computer all the time. So how to ensure high data quality and minimize bias in coverage is a major problem. Since we cannot control what device they use, okay, when especially you send them an email to invite them to participate in a survey, they choose whatever device is convenient to answer. So we have to understand the difference. How much is the difference between a smartphone entered survey versus a regular computer entry? So there are three things that we have to understand the difference, at least three. Screen size difference. A phone, how big it can be, we know that, well, it's in a couple inches, right? So one is a big full screen, which it also depends on which monitor you can have. You can have a big monitor like 20 inches, okay, but you can also have like a 12 inches network type of computer. The response entry method is also different because for smartphone or mobile device, you don't use keyboard. You use your hand to touch the screen to enter information. While you use computer, then you use a keyboard to enter and type. The third is the location and setting difference because when you are using computer, most likely you are probably in an office situation in a location with a desk and then write things easily, right? But when you are on a smartphone, actually maybe you are in the bathroom, maybe you are in a dining room, or maybe you are sleeping on the bed, okay? So all sorts of possible settings. So the settings may also affect the differences. And also we have people around you. So because of all these questions I have, so I decided, well, let's do a study to find out the answers, okay? So the first study that I did is with my graduate student, Chen Jiang, who is, we worked together to compare smartphone versus computer in a web survey response data quality, how it affected, or whether it affected at all. So we examined the effect of smartphones and computers' web survey entry response devices on the quality of response in different question formats across different survey invitations to different modes. And also compare the respondents' preference of the device and the response immediacy towards the survey invitation. So first of all, smartphone in our study, we look at smartphone not as just a phone. We look at it as a visual questionnaire display device and online response entry data collection device for web surveys. So it's not cell phone versus landline phone. It's basically is, okay, we have this device just like a computer, but it's a smartphone. So how will people respond? So first of all, we have to understand the disadvantage of advantage of smartphone as a data entry device. The disadvantage is a lower completion rate and higher break-off rates by self-administered survey than personal computers, according to a study by Manitoba. And limited to users who have smartphones. So only those people who have smartphone have the data coverage would be able to answer it. And those different performance, different smartphone brands. A iPhone would be very different from a Samsung or an LG phone or some other brand phone. Okay, they have different usability. And then the cellular internet connection is not as stable as and lower speed than the general Wi-Fi. But the advantages is very easy to carry for field work and which respond at any time. So my question, okay, this is what I want, but what's the general preferred response device when a web survey is delivered via email to college students? And then which device is used more for immediate response to survey for college students? And the third one will disappear does question format matter in the data collection? So I have three hypotheses. The first one is smartphones and tablets. We hypothesize that they will, as response entry device, will result in longer time to complete surveys than computer. Why? Because think about it, if you have to touch screen every answer, that is, at least for me, I'm not that fast touch screener. So it's much slower to do this than typing. Typing is more accurate. So it's also faster, easier to do that. So theoretically, it should take longer time because to do the same thing, especially if you enter the response open-ended, then it takes longer. So supposedly, it should take longer time for the same questionnaire. And smartphone and tablets response device will result in lower item non-response rate than computers. Because probably people don't see it's very comfortable, so they just skip, right? So that's the lower data response quality. And also smartphone tablets as response entry device will have higher non-differentiated responses in matrix questions than computers because, well, people just want to do it quickly. That's not very comfortable, right, on the phone, on the palm. So that's why you want to do it quickly. When you want to do it quickly, then, of course, you will do non-differentiated, one-lining, doing the same thing all across. That's the easiest, the fastest one. So supposedly, smartphone probably may facilitate that kind of response, which threatens the data quality. And then for the next hypothesis is response entry device would affect the overall survey item response rate, even after we control all these demographic variables, like gender, personal one-thing income, and class standing for college students. Okay, so we have two studies for doing this. One is a field experiment, one is a natural experiment on college student population. So you can ask, why college students? Well, easy answer is, well, they have easy access, right? You can get college students much easier, especially if I want to replicate. It's much harder to replicate in the general population, not just cost, but also accessibility. And also, it should be comparable. Because if you are trying two studies to compare the result, it should be comparable in topic and in terms of population characteristics. Otherwise, it may be due to other reasons rather than the survey design or the device. So that's why I decided, well, college students, fine. I don't have the general population generalization, but I have generalization for my, at least university, because I'm using a representative sample for my university. So the first one is a field experiment, which uses a computer-assisted self-administered interview. What does that mean, CASI? It means that we have the device, but we let people to enter the response by themselves. So we don't have an interviewer read the responses to us. We just give the device, the computer or the smartphone, they enter the answer, they enter the survey by themselves. So it's self-administered. It's almost like giving a paper pencil survey, but instead of paper, we give them the device. So we recruit them by interviewers. The interviewers just is doing the recruitment, just get the people consent and give them consent forms, this kind of thing, and then ask them to participate. So the quota per interview is 20 subjects. Half would use the computer and half would use smartphones. So the participant could not choose which device. They were just randomly assigned. Either they are using computer or smartphone. Okay. So the topic is survey of use of campus media. So it's very easy. Everybody should be able to answer all the questions. And the sampling equipment, we use a cluster sampling of students' residents. We classify the student residents in different types, dorm, apartment, and commuters in the union. Then we reach them through the different locations. Study 2 is a natural experiment. Why I call it natural? Because actually I don't do anything. The manipulation is very natural because people would respond by what device they have or they choose to use when they receive the email survey, which is the most natural one. Most of us actually receive our survey invitation this way. We receive an invitation by email most likely, and then we choose what device we use. So we use that kind of natural environment. So the student population was reached by email invitation, and the cooperation rate was 2.7%. With 419 responses out of 50,000 email addresses, that I have the whole university email addresses. But this is the response rate. And it is presented the same way. They are presented, both of them are presented as student projects. The student projects, they just fill out, please help the students to do that. But when you do the email, you'll have 2.7% response rate. And the survey is about online videos. And it consists of all students. It's all the same type of topic, but not the same. But the problem is the very poor response rate. And of course, I understand it because of email. Email surveys typically have low participation rate unless you have some incentive. I don't have any incentive, no money, nothing. So that's why no extra credit. So that's why I expect it's a low response rate. Okay, so how do I compare? The result is I look at what are the benchmark I want to use to measure data quality. First, the item non-response rate is the total percentage of missing response in each type of question format. So I have question format, closed-ended, open-ended format, and matrix question format. And then I look at non-differentiate rate as one indicator of satisficing by how many percentage of the same value of input to all items in the written questions. The more it is, the more non-differentiation that the responses. And then the time to complete the survey is based on the metadata in the web survey. So we use, first of all, the response latency is the time between the hour the survey was completed and the hour the survey was issued. Which is study 2, I can do that. And for the device choice, it's based on the embedded data on the browser type, and those who use a mobile browser were coded as using a mobile device. So you can see that this is the actual survey that we are doing. So this is the mobile version, and this is the computer version. Because we use Qualtrics as a company that we use as a survey software company, they optimize the display of this is a matrix question. So by breaking down like one, each question, it actually puts a never something in the vertical format and instead of a horizontal format in a grid format. So it takes supposedly longer because everything is one by one, like here. But to our surprise, no, it is not what we thought. First of all, you can see the numbers here. I don't know whether in the back people can see it. But basically, you can see there's only one asterisk among all these variables, which include open and closed-ended questions, comparison, and matrix questions, and then all questions, and then time in minutes, and then the last one is satisfying, the non-differentiation. You can see that the only difference is significant difference in the closed-ended question, which 85, basically 85% of them complete responses. And for laptops, 89%. So slightly better. So it is significant. All the other are not significant. Especially the time to take in response entry. It took 7.67 minutes to complete the smartphone, but took 8.25 minutes to complete on computer. Though not statistically significant difference, but there's a difference. So the difference is that, well, at least it reject hypothesis because it's not longer, it's shorter to finish a smartphone. And there's no difference. Basically, they're very low. All right. So this is study 2. I want to directly compare. Study 2 is letting people choose the device. And then you still find smartphone is 11.1. Sorry. All right. Here. Smartphone is 11.16 minutes, and laptop is 11.7 minutes. Slightly shorter, but still not longer than the smartphone. So these two are having consistent result. The same, also closed-ended is the only significant difference. Although there's some difference, but it's not approaching that 1.96 in t-value, so not yet, but it's close to that. All right, then the second question is, how about, well, are there other reasons why they are not having the response rate that it is based on the overall survey completion rate? So basically we found that only device and gender in study 1 make the difference. Gender of the respondent would be more likely to respond poorly, like male are more likely to have a lower survey completion rate than female. And the completion time is also different. The shorter the completion time, the more likely the survey is incomplete, which is expected, right? So the class setting also make a difference. Actually, more mature students actually do better, read the survey better. But in study 2, when people choose their own device, all right, not you dictate what device they have. They choose the device, then the device is not significant anymore in affecting the completion rate. Only the completion time affect this completion rate, which is not very particularly useful because we know that if you spend more time composing, you should do more completion. So, but it shows that actually some of the suspicions are not supported. So, first of all, look at some of the overall situation. First of all, is computer were twice as more likely be chosen in study 2 when the respondents were free to choose the response device. So despite the convenience of smartphone as they thought, still people, especially students, college students, as a population that has easy access to computers and phone basically almost equally, they would choose computers. However, the response within the first 3 hours, or the response latency is faster, 54% use smartphone to respond. So smartphone, if you want an immediate response, smartphone are more likely are the one that will give you immediate response. And then within 33% of the response were within the first hour of distribution. And I want to remind a lot of our researchers, when you do this kind of verb survey, there's an out of sight, out of mind effect, which means that you have to catch people at the right moment. When they are having probably more the mood to cooperate or fill out a survey, when you reach them at that time, they're more likely to respond. After they read your email or past the open time, then you lost them. If they open an email, oh, I'm busy, I forgot about it, they won't go back to the email to complete your survey. So that's why your survey delivery time is very, very important. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of people because people will, unlike a print survey, they're more likely, well, it's on the paper and on the desk or something, that they are more likely to remember it. But email, if they forgot it, they don't respond anymore. But that's very important. So the cooperation rate was very low in the email deliver only web survey. And I did not mention the cooperation rate of the computer assisted self-administered survey. The survey participation rate is 91.7% cooperation rate. So actually it's not comparable. You say, oh, one is so high and so low. Yes, because of people. the interviewer recruitment difference, which is very, very important. Because we thought that, oh, web survey is easy to deliver via email. Okay, send email, cheap, right? Cheap email, you get cheap response. So if you're willing to invest in human people, then you're more likely to have the participation rate you want, because people would not reject a person so easily than just an email. So if we are serious about getting the response rate, then probably we have to invest in people, in getting a reviewer. This is an interviewer, sorry. But the interviewer, in our situation, when you use the computer self-administered survey, the interviewer only do the recruitment. They don't ask the questions. So the interviewer bias is only limited in the recruitment phase. Other than that, all the answer, wrong or right, poor response, poor quality response, good quality response is dependent on the respondent, not dependent on the interviewer anymore. So the other thing is the response device entry did not have significant effect on completion time and satisfying and non-differentiation as hypothesized. Actually, it's a good thing. Because we were worried about, well, if smartphone will be so bad, then how can we control it? But actually now, you don't need to worry so much about controlling it. It's not a big matter. It doesn't matter. So the third thing is the complex question format requiring text input is not a hurdle in a mobile optimized web survey, like the one that I use. Because in the past, Metalova, when she do the survey, she did not mention whether it's an optimized survey or not, but it's 2013, and I believe that at that time, 2012, when they do it, probably the software is not optimized for mobile device. But after now, like projects of some other software company, they optimize the display, then there's not a big difference. Either whether they're willing to do it or not. Okay, the slightly lower performance in the data quality of smartphones than computer, except the completion rate of the closed-ended survey questions in the email delivered web survey. So how to explain it? Well, probably one of the things is the setting in smartphone, because smartphone is not so, when you use a smartphone to enter survey, it's not as comfortable. So you want to finish it as soon as possible. You don't spend a lot of time on entering, using your fingers to touch screen and those things. So they would want to rush to finish. Theoretically, they would. But actually didn't affect so much of the response quality. We were thinking that it would affect some, but it's not that bad. Actually, quite good in a sense. So because of that, we can say that smartphone is a viable means to survey researchers. So we don't need to worry so much. Smartphone, let them use the smartphone. Because if you have smartphone, they have an alternative way to catch them at the moment that they are willing. Like, for example, they are waiting in line. Okay, there's a survey coming out, I have nothing to do. Okay, I will answer the survey. Actually, this is a good thing. Because in the past, we don't have that option. We have to wait until they sit down on the computer and then enter the thing. But now, well, whenever you can catch them, they are in a mood to answer the survey, you can catch them. So device defect is only significant in settings with interviewers. Actually, we found the first study, there's a gender effect, men and women. Because the interviewer, probably when he select the gender of the respondent, because of the presence of an interviewer there, so they may be having a different behavior. Whether at least they would complete it as needed, right? So that's the device defect. Actually, it's more caused by the presence of an interviewer. But when there's no presence of an interviewer, the device did not have any effect anymore. So I suspect that probably the device effect is an artifact of the interviewer being there. Okay, so how are we doing on time? I don't have my full focus. 20 minutes? Okay, good. Back into my second study. All right. So I managed to use a smartphone for survey field work. So I just want to list some of the experience that I can share. So if you are interested in using smartphone for field work, that's something you can consider. First of all, cellular internet access is much wider coverage than Wi-Fi for laptops. So laptops rely on Wi-Fi mostly. Most of them don't have cellular data. But smartphone without cellular data, and there are more places with cellular data than Wi-Fi. So you are not dependent on whether they place a Wi-Fi coverage. So you have more choices or more places to go. Second is cell phone typically have longer battery life. If you do need to do those self-administered field work, as your interviewer, you bring the device. Then first of all, it's lighter to bring a smartphone than a computer. And also the lighter weight and long battery life is a big advantage. No extra setting is needed. Basically, you can go anywhere to do your survey study, including in a restaurant or in a department store or any place. And you don't need to worry about the device effect so much as long as the web service is optimized for mobile display. And especially it's good for timely response and immediate recall for recent happenings. If you want to ask immediate answer after the debate for like the presidential candidates, then you can immediately ask people's response immediately, right away, so that before they forget. So also population do not need to use computers all the time. They like to choose smartphones. Because we are intellectual, so we are well-educated college people. So of course, computer is very natural for us. But if you ask an old lady or ask a very small child, probably they would not want to use a computer because they don't know how to operate. It takes some time for them to learn. But the smartphone, most of them now use phone. They know how to use a phone. So as long as they know how to touch the screen, then they need know how to read. Then they will be able to participate. And actually in the future, the development is that you can choose audio display too. Instead of Google or someone and many other software companies have that kind of possibility that you can, for for blind people, that you can press a button and become reading to you. So actually it may not, in the future, literacy is not required. As long as you can hear, you can still participate in using a smartphone survey. And also, what are the implications of the response latency? Because student participants were more likely to use smartphones than computers to immediately respond to the survey invitation within the first hour. So if we have doing some study that require immediate response, that's a good way to expect and encourage them to answer on the smartphone. Some researchers, I know that actually they said that, oh, please use computer to answer this survey. Probably this may not be necessary anymore. If you want to have an immediate response, just let them choose whatever they want, which may be smartphone. And especially smartphone, as I said, can combat the out-of-sight, out-of-mind problem of web survey. Okay, so, another study that I want to, hopefully we can cover in 10 minutes to 15 minutes is the data response and response quality comparison between computer-assisted personal interview versus computer-assisted self-administered interviews. Because earlier I just focused on the device, but right now I also focus on how the interviewer's role. Whether an interviewer is there, just there, but give the device for the person to fill up, versus the person actually read out the questions and kind of prompt the response and ask people to make sure they answer everything before they go. So what would be the data quality differences? Okay, so one of the things why I also very advocate people in the future to do survey, especially for people in the population like the older population or population don't have internet access or have very low computer skills, is that, well, on one hand, we can do face-to-face interview. But on the other hand, we have to think about that when they fill it out, we actually would collect the data where they are from, right? Because when they choose their own computer or device to use, we can theoretically get their IP address. So this is not good. Actually, if you want to complete anonymous, it is not completely anonymous. But if you give the device to them, then it's completely anonymous because it's your own device, it's your own IP address. Everyone has the same IP address. So actually, it's good. It's complete confidentiality. You can guarantee to your respondent. And also, you can standardize display and response entry device because if you don't want big screen, small screen, Mac, or PC, you can dictate what kind of device and then use the same device. Then make sure there no device effect, everything is the same. You just give them the same thing. But you take advantage of the presence of interviewers to invite potential participants because we found that, well, it's important to have people to recruit people to participation. And also you can keep the privacy of respondent to have them to fill out the web survey themselves. Because if you give them the self-administered version, then the interviewer is just recruiting them, then you can really let them do what they want. All right, so the KC, which is the self-administration interview using computer or actually the device assistant, is you minimize the interviewer bias. It's better than the telephone or face-to-face interview. And the interviewer's solicitation can increase the respondent trust and survey credibility. You can also provide incentive or presents or gifts to them if you want to encourage participation. The privacy protection, we just mentioned about it, high cooperation rate. You can provide assistance to respondents for disadvantaged groups, especially if you know that, oh, they have low computer skill. You can type it for them if you need it. And self-paced in responding, you have less socially desirable outcomes, and also the standardized display of survey content with the same device. So, but there's required conditions for using the computer-assisted self-administered interview, internet access or cellular data available, you can use it. And participants generally have to be geographically concentrated, otherwise it's not economical to deploy all these interviews all everywhere. And respondents must be comfortable to answer computers or on a smartphone. And they're not suitable for too long, the questionnaire, take too much time. And also with matrix questions, because most likely they may skip. And also higher cost than email delivery service, you have an interviewer, you have to hire them. So my research design is to look at how it compares with the interviewer, direct participation and asking questions versus just relying them to self-administer on the computer. So I have a 2x2 factorial design field experiment. So we have face-to-face interviews versus a hybrid mobile smartphone versus laptops. So the origin survey purpose is computer media use of college students. We also display on portraits, optimized for mobile device. So we use the same method, interviews, and so on. So the data quality, how do we determine? Is using the prior data recorded on the web survey and the survey completion time. The response quality is also item completion rate, indication of satisficing. Plus, we add the social desirability bias. We ask some questions that most likely students would be more likely to answer based on social desirability. Like, for example, are you involved in student campus organization? But most students will probably say yes, even though they don't do participation because, well, it looks nice, sounds nice to participate, right? So, and also how often do you read emails from your university departments? So probably you would say from professors or from academic advisors, probably you would say yes, right? So we want to see whether people would answer those differently if you have an interviewer versus self-administered. So the first hypothesis I have is both of data collection would have different effects on response quality. So respondents spend more time to complete surveys in computer-aided personal interviews versus in the CAPI method versus the CASI method. CAPI method is with the interviewer asking questions. So it's not supported. Actually, people with an interviewer actually take more time. It's 8.15 minutes. But those people who are using the self-administered one is only 7.75 minutes. So it's insignificant, the differences. So actually, but it's still longer. Actually, using the interviewer take longer. And also, CAPI performs better than the hybrid SAD, which is the CASI method in the item completion rate. So it's also not supported. CASI, the self-administered, has high item completion rate. So we thought the interviewer would help, but actually interview did not help. The third is the CASI method performs better than the CAPI in item completion rate of complex question formats such as the matrix question, also not supported. Okay, so the mode of data quality have different effects on response quality. So respondents are more likely to provide answers for open-ended questions in the hybrid asset and then the CAPI method, which is the KSI method versus the KU method. But the KSI method actually performs better than the CAPI method. So people are more likely to answer open-ended questions when they are self-administered. The hybrid method also have fewer social desirable answers than the CAPI method, also supported. The higher social desirable answers in 4 out of the 5 questions when you have a person interviewing the respondent. So CASI method also have higher satisfying concurrence in matrix question than CAPI, also same supported. So basic self-administer is better in helping people answer the matrix questions than in the person with the interviews. So we look at the main effects. So survey mode and response entry device independently affect the data quality as main effect. So they're different. So for example, we can see the device and mode effect was only found in the open-ended questions only. So CASI, the computer-assisted self-administered interviews, have higher item completion rate than the open-ended questions, than the personal interviews. So you can see the smartphone basically have some difference, but when it's by the mode, there's a big difference. The face-to-face, this is the face-to-face, this is the device provided, they're more likely to answer the open-ended questions. And we don't find any interaction between the mode and the device, so they are independently affecting the responses. And also the demographic does not affect the item completion rate. We only find in this situation comparing the face-to-face versus the interview versus the just self-administer, the device has an effect, the mode has an effect, all this demographic information have no effect. So basically, if you can afford, bring the device with you and have the interviewer to recruit is probably the best in all kinds of data quality and cooperation that the computer-assisted personal interview. So having an interviewer to ask questions actually has no particular benefit, unless that is the person cannot answer the question themselves. The mode has no significant effect on the matrix questions, and the completion in CASI is 0.4 minutes faster than a CAPI, but does not influence the data quality. So there's some time difference, but as long as it did not influence data quality, I don't think it matters. All right, so this is my presentation. Thank you.